This is an instructional video on how to make a brake adjustment on your Evo scooter. Obviously, as brakes are used, you get wear on the pads and the amount of travel on the brake lever does become excessive eventually. Firstly, you can actually make fine adjustments by simply unscrewing the fine adjustment on the brake lever itself counterclockwise and locking the nut. That takes care of fine adjustments, but if you've got a lot of wear, you may need to actually make an adjustment down at the caliper end of the brake. So if you need to do that, firstly make sure that that is back in its home position fully clockwise, and that gives you a bit more adjustment in the future if you need it. So coming down to the caliper end, basically what you do, if you hold that moving part of the caliper and then undo the locking screw with a 5mm Allen key, then holding the inner cable, simply move the moving arm a little bit closer to its home travel and just nip the screw up fairly tight. Then you can go to the handlebar end and check the amount of travel. Usually halfway between the handlebar and where the lever starts is a good indication of good brake adjustment. If that is correct now, make sure that you really lock up that screw tight before commencing. Another thing to look for, if the scooter is fairly old, and when you do that adjustment, that lever goes very close to the fixed part, it's a very good indication that your brake pads are very worn and you may want to look at replacing them with new pads. So I'll just lock that up again, make sure it's really tight. Again, I'll check the brake travel, and that's okay. Right, that's the amount of travel adjusted. Another adjustment you need to look at after having done that is the actual position of the caliper itself in relationship to the brake disc. And we do that by loosening these two screws here and the one opposite, which you may not be able to see at the moment. We'll do that as well. That allows the caliper to float backwards and forwards. So at this juncture, grab hold of the brake lever and pull it really tight and hold it back in position. And whilst holding it in position, simply nip these screws up again. Nip them carefully, and then once you've nipped them, really tighten them down again. You don't want them coming loose. Let go of the brake. That should render the wheel being free and the brake disc being in the right position to the brake pads and not binding or interfering. And that's basically how you do your brake adjustment on your Evo scooter.